Today's episode is brought to you in part by Liquid Death. Murder your thirst with 100% mountain water from the Alps, made by nature, not in a lab. Available both still or sparkling, Liquid Death is infinitely recyclable in tall boy cans, just like beer, and never in plastic. Get a case delivered to your house today at unitedweDrink.com/liquiddeath, and you can get a free koozie pack by using the code FREEKOOZIEAF. That's FREEKOOZIEAF at checkout. Just add any Liquid Death koozie pack to your cart, use the code, buy some water, and get these sweet-ass koozies for free with your thirst-murdering water. From Liquid Death at unitedwedrink.com/liquiddeath. Now enjoy the show. The opinions and statements in this podcast do not represent those of the host's employers, co-workers, family, or imaginary friends. Now enjoy the show.
Happy hour? More like amateur hour. Welcome to United We Drink.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the only beer podcast that hates being a beer podcast. Welcome to United We Drink, right here on unitedwedrink.com, as well as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, and wherever fine podcasts are found. My name is Mike Urevich, and I was going to say something else until fucking this pop-up just came up, and I am sick and tired of a vast premium security trying to get me to fucking buy their shit. I'm also ecstatic about Oktoberfest season being upon us. With me first is our resident MCU expert and now home light fixture installer extraordinaire. It's Joel Codner.
Yes, I love comic book movies and not spending $3,000 to install 3 lights like some fucking local assholes wanted to charge.
I was just telling my wife about that the other night, and she's like, are you fucking kidding me? $3,000 I thought it was 2, but still, like, that's an insane amount of money.
And he tried to upsell me on the entire home surge protection thing, you know, like, oh, it's the lightning capital of Florida. Like, okay. And
West Boca?
I mean, there's plenty of people here who should be struck by lightning, but unfortunately, it's just not the case. But what really didn't sell me on acquiring their services was the fucking ladder fee they wanted to charge me.
How much was that?
I didn't specify. I did not get an itemized thing.
All right. Well, also with us is a guy who's pretty well versed in the MCU as well, but he is our resident Canadian whiskey expert, Kevin Abbott.
Honor and a privilege, gentlemen, as always, to be joining you. I have also installed several of my own lights. I just not to be outdone by Joel. I've also spent way too much money having people do it as well. So I got 1 foot in the pool and 1 foot out.
While you're installing the lighting?
Yeah, fucking, that was where I was going.
It's dangerous, but it's also exciting.
Kevin, did you see the Eternals trailer today?
I have not. I've been staying away from the trailers and the breakdowns of trailers because I want to kind of go into a lot of these movies fresh. Like I haven't even. Yeah, I've been focusing more on the What If series and all the breakdowns after watching them. That's kind of my bag right now.
Gotcha.
I haven't watched the most recent episode of What If yet, but this was this series that I was looking forward to the most of the ones coming to Disney Plus. I did not know anything about the Eternals, do not know anything about the Eternals, watched the trailer and was like, well, I'm sold on watching this movie. It looked like a good Joel's showing that he has a comic book.
Of the Eternals,
yeah,
by the way.
Okay. Just from my time reading comics in the early 90s, late 80s, like this They were not something that I knew of. I don't know if they existed. I've never really done a lot of research, but that trailer fucking kicked ass. And I'm looking forward to that flick. I know Joel's day one will be there, like whatever his hashtag is. What is it?
Day one we there.
That's it. All right. What are we drinking here tonight, gentlemen? Kevin, what do you got?
How about them pineapples?
Weren't you drinking that last episode too?
Last episode I was not. I was drinking an Endless Enigma last episode, as well as a beer that Phil, our guest on that episode, had done. By the way, I do have my backup Endless Enigma here for the next beer. And then one more backup, a Single in the Sun. You know, just in case this goes
Who
long.
makes those beers? I'm not sure if anyone's familiar with the brewery.
It's a small brewery in Boca Raton. It's not even worth going into.
Okay. Joel, have you blown your wad on your once a day drink already, or are you doing something with us today?
I have not blown my wad. I was actually thinking of not drinking at all. I just really did not feel like it. I have been super exhausted lately. I don't know why. It's very weird. But
the humidity's been fucking awful the last week.
It's brutal. But no, I also had like a ton of blood taken last week, and ever since then I've just felt a little off. But
was that done professionally or just
both?
Okay.
Yeah. But
it's good to put that out there.
Right. It's not like, someone just randomly walked up onto the street and fucking vampires all over West Boca here. But I said fuck it and I opened a Berry House Beer Company Tampa Export Lager. This was part of the care package from our good friend Jared and also Tyler over at Angry Chair. Great lager, really good beer. Really enjoying it. It's my last one from the pack they sent. And as always, I've got my sparkling water back up. This one is Ruby Red Grapefruit. So kind of like what Kevin is drinking, as far as IPAs go. Oh, Kevin's got the passion fruit bubbly.
Mm-hmm.
Really, really disappointed in that one. I mean, it's fine. It's fine. I don't think it's bad, but they did not come with the flavor on that one.
They did not. Mike, what are you drinking?
I am drinking Shiner Oktoberfest. Now third Oktoberfest of the season, because I had a couple while I was making dinner and eating dinner.
Are you sure it's not an Ogtoberfest?
Some like the text, the fonts used on some of these can be a little hard to read, but I'm fairly certain that is a K.
Okay, just want to make sure.
And then I also have a can of Liquid Death as my my little bubbly option myself. So we have a topic, but there's actually a piece of news that I want to talk about really quick. We haven't done a whole lot of news stuff on the show, and our resident news guy, Bill Parmigiano, he threw this into our Slack channel last week, and it was about IHOP, International House of the P means something, but it's IHOP. They're going to add beer and wine to some of their locations in San Diego and New Mexico, and kind of branch out from there and see about if they can sell some booze, because they say that 66% of recent IHOP guests have stated that they wanted alcoholic beverages to accompany their meals.
Sounds low. Sounds way low.
66% does sound very low for IHOP.
I've only ever been to IHOP while drunk, so I can see not wanting more if I'm trying to come down, but 99.9% of the time I want to keep drinking when I go to an IHOP.
I want to know what that percentage is of guests that come to IHOP between the hours of 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. because I'm fairly certain that that is like 97 to 99%.
Maybe 113%. Is that possible?
It is. It is. I've just received word that that is mathematically possible. Thank you, Kevin.
You're welcome.
But it does look like they're going to start things off with just like Bud Light, Blue Moon, Corona, and then work on locally sourced beers. Their words, not mine. Thereafter, and also having mimosas and wine provided by E&J Gallo Winery, who make Barefoot brands. They bring up in this whole article that this is a move that is coupled along with moves by First Watch and Cracker Barrel, who are adding alcoholic beverages to their menus. First of all, I didn't know that Cracker Barrel didn't have booze, because I feel like they could sell way more merch in their entry point gift shops if they had booze. Like, why haven't you been selling booze forever there? And also they mentioned that Starbucks tried this a couple of years back and then scrapped the whole program after not too long. But the fact that Starbucks is considered a restaurant in a lot of places is weird to me, but I'm getting off topic. IHOP, booze. What do you guys think, Joel?
Well, first, let me go back to your Starbucks comment, Mike. I personally find it hard to believe people think Starbucks is coffee, let alone a restaurant. But that's neither here nor there, as they say in the boardrooms across America. I have a fundamental problem with whoever is making these decisions at IHOP, and I'm going to tell you why. A few years back, and you can find this on YouTube.
Remember, Joel doesn't like people to say or to laugh during songs. So just putting that out there.
But I love pancakes, so listen up. So if you go a few years back on YouTube, you will find an old IHOP commercial where apparently an African-American gentleman in their commercial says, "These pancakes have swag." Now, I don't know what the fuck that means, but when I saw that on TV the first time, I said, wait, like, am I high right now? Did I just hear that in that, like, what does that mean? And it's one of my favorite silly marketing things of all time. But then, a couple years back, IHOP tried to call themselves IHOB and sell burgers.
That was a marketing gimmick. That wasn't like
Right.
a true, like, we're really trying to do this thing.
Well, personally, I think at one of their more run-down locations, the P on the sign,
Yes.
like a screw came loose and went upside down, and they're like, "Oh, IHOB, what can we do with that?" And that's that's my theory.
They did completely rebrand one location in California.
Oh, God.
Man, you know a lot about IHOP, Mike.
Well,
I am part of their International Society of IHOP Historians.
now,
International. I don't.
You'll get there. Take your time, Joel. Keep going. Mike will get there eventually.
so
Acronyms are hard.
now, they're dipping their syrup-soaked toes in the world of beer and whatever. I think, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I know everyone, from small, breweries like us and you guys to, large chains are all trying to figure out ways of how do we stand out? How do we come up with something new and keep people interested and keep them coming back and keeping things fresh? But I just think IHOP is one of those things where it's like, you don't need to fuck with the formula. You're lucky enough if they get your order right to begin with, because they never write it down. So good luck getting, the beer you ordered in a clean glass. It's just, I don't see the point. I think Starbucks is a little bit of a different situation, because that is a place, an empire built on caffeinating people with a certain kind of liquid. And to, dip your toes in something that is the complete opposite, I think is just silly. And, with IHOP, people, they're going to get breakfast and some coffee, and, they're just coming from church or, their kid's soccer game or whatever. I've been to IHOP a few times recently. The kids like it, and they ask, if we can go Saturday, Sunday, that kind of thing. And I oblige them because it's been a shit year and a half and they want to get out. And, if they want IHOP, fuck it. Like, we'll go to IHOP. It sucks, but whatever. And,
Joel, can I just jump in here and say, after church and coming back from a kid's soccer game, the 2 times I want a beer the most. Go on.
You should honestly be going into both of those drunk to begin with.
Preach, brother. Preach.
Yeah. But it's just, I feel like every fucking chain restaurant does this every 6 months. Like, there's Taco Bell, and, everyone's going to dabble with alcohol. And I don't think that's what's going to draw people. I mean, you can get a fucking Bud or a Blue Moon anywhere.
With that said, like, it brings me to something I wanted to say, but that, like, these companies announcing, we're trying out alcohol in our restaurants. They say this as if this is some groundbreaking thing, that fucking TGI Fridays has been ahead of the game on them for who knows fucking how long. Like, do you need a press release to say, hey, we're looking at this thing called beer? Like, it's kind of sad.
You guys are some cynical motherfuckers.
Have you met this podcast?
And by the way, I think, Joel, your middle name should be Joel, I have a fundamental problem, Codner. I think that would be a good moniker for you. You can start off. I think it's a prerequisite. If Joel's talking, he's talking about a fundamental problem he has, and you don't even need to mention it anymore. So that's something I think all the listeners should just take as a given. Guys, they're trying to find another profit center, right? I'm guessing revenues are down. People aren't going to these kind of restaurants as much anymore, and they're trying to find another revenue center. And that revenue center is going to be gobbled up by Budweiser and Coors and Miller and the big guys. But if they give a small chance to a couple local or even national craft brands to have some beer available in their place, good. I mean, we're talking about more places to sell beer. And if I haven't been to an IHOP in 10 years, right? I have not been to an IHOP in a long time. But if they had a beer, and even a shitty beer, I might order one. And if you're going to start selling something you haven't sold before, they put out a press release when they add new menu items. So why wouldn't they do one when they're adding beer? It's not a new thing, but it's a new thing for them. If Barrel Amongst Brewing started doing a seltzer or a different kind of thing, or started a restaurant next door, we'd probably tell people. I think that's probably good marketing. If they want to go the other way and go, shh, don't tell anyone, I don't know if that's the best way to go about it.
Always the voice of reason on this fucking show and in our lives. Kevin Abbott. Thank you, everybody.
I'd like to see a press release from IHOP that says, hey, we decided to start cleaning our bathrooms. Or breaking news, we're going to start training our wait staff and not have them be so fucking miserable.
Press release from IHOP. We still have pancakes.
And they're fucking good pancakes. Most of the other menu.
Okay. Real quick.
The rest of the menu is mostly shit, but
real quick survey. Joel, I'm taking from that you are a fan of pancakes, the meal in general. Kevin, do you like pancakes?
I do not care for pancakes. If I go to IHOP, I am not getting a breakfast item at all. I don't care for breakfast. I find it to be off-putting.
You're going off base there, and I'm getting angry because I like breakfast foods.
You don't like breakfast in general?
Mm-mm. Not a fan. I don't believe in it.
So do you eat anything in the morning, or just not breakfast items?
I do not eat breakfast.
You don't like eggs?
I'm neutral to eggs. Eggs are fine. If you put eggs in a shashuka, I'll eat that shit up all day. For my gourmet foodies out there, they'll understand that. But I don't eat breakfast at all on a regular basis, and I rarely eat before noon ever. Most of the time I don't eat until 4 or 5 o'clock, once a day.
I just got a
Really?
message from Joel saying that we have to kick you off the show. So,
Kevin has a fundamental problem with breakfast.
Yes!
the question was solely about pancakes because pancakes are fucking terrible. So I'm glad that at least 2/3 of this podcast agrees that pancakes are awful. Joel looks like someone just keyed his car in front of him while looking him directly in the eye.
I'm not even supposed to be having pancakes. Like, you guys need to eat this shit so I can live, vicariously through you. What's wrong with pancakes?
I'll eat all the country fried steak and eggs for you, but pancakes, nah. If I gotta eat a starchy thing like that, it's French toast all the way.
Okay, I was just gonna ask.
Not a fan.
And I like a waffle every once a year, but we're getting off base by a lot. We're not talking about my shopping habits, at least this time.
Let's talk more about. So what's going on with Topo Chico right now, Mike? Go.
I don't know, but I'm drinking some Liquid Death straight out of a can that is infinitely recyclable. Murder your thirst, motherfuckers. All right. Any other thoughts on IHOP having booze or beer and wine in stores? Nope.
No,
all right.
I'm for it.
Bad idea.
For it, bad idea. Great. Glad that we got that out of the way. All right. So for today's topic, what we wanted to talk about was the whole kind of we're in shit again with this whole pandemic. We're actually seemingly worse off than we were over a year ago, and we have a vaccine. So we want to kind of see where do we see the beverage industry, the alcoholic beverage industry being post-pandemic, if we even ever get there. Like, there's been a lot of things and a lot of creativity that have come about in this whole pandemic, from bars, restaurants, breweries, to be able to keep people with food and drinks and such. What type of things do you think can stick around post this? What do you think goes away? Do you think that we ever go back to a semi-normal state? Do we ever have like bars be bars again? Or are people always going to be a little more cautious and never really hang out for sessions in a bar anymore? And so with that said, I'm going to throw it over to Joel for where the fuck do you see beverage and drinks going in our world?
Well, if Kevin thinks I'm cynical about IHOP, strap yourself in. I was thinking about this earlier, and I don't enjoy having these thoughts, but I do feel like things, while the world may not return to normal, well, no, I'm saying that wrong. I think things are just going to get back to normal. I don't think we learned from anything. I don't think we're a very enlightened country. I don't think we're a very smart country. We're in Florida, so, that kind of skews my perspective. And if we have any listeners outside of Florida, people know Florida's the weird state and all the weird shit goes on here. But we've kind of seen it firsthand. I mean, last year when we didn't have a vaccine and we knew less, and we were honestly slightly safer and didn't know it. Like, we were wiping down our Amazon packages and all that shit. And we now know that wasn't really necessary. But I just think, like, back then when we knew less and weren't as protected, we were still getting out there and going wild and doing all kinds of crazy shit and, bars were packed. The former brewery I was at, well, two of them actually during the pandemic, were slammed at times. Maybe it's a Florida thing, or maybe it really is an overall kind of American thing, at least. I just feel like people are going to kind of do what they want ultimately. I mean, this is a country based on freedom, and I think people are going to try to exercise that freedom for as long as they possibly can. I think there are people who are cautious and shying away from other people and still keeping their distance and masking up and doing what they feel is safe for themselves and their families. But there's also a lot of people who just don't give a shit, or straight up don't believe any of this. So I think that while our particular sector and industry will suffer because of this, I was just remarking to Kevin today that I've been in a couple of chains lately that are not IHOP, and really noticed that there is very little, if any, craft beer in these places where there once was, and it's all macro and, as they say, crafty craft. And I think that has a lot to do with what Kevin had replied, which was, I'm sure cost is a factor, and some of those big brand kegs are obviously cheaper, but I'm sure they're also just kind of downsizing a little bit and not taking on so much and having these huge selections when things aren't, sales aren't back to where they were. Staffing is not back to where it is. We see every day places are just deciding not to open that day because they're understaffed and can't get people in the door. And obviously that's a whole other discussion, but I don't think, bars are just going to start going away. I mean, yes, small businesses will be hurt, but I don't think they're going to go away because people don't want to go to them anymore. I just think that so many of them are just not capable of operating in this atmosphere. And, we've seen giant corporations getting, these loans that the small businesses were supposed to get. Like, how many fucking millions did Panera Bread get? So I overall, I just think people are still going to go out and do what they want to do. I don't think the way we do things are going to change a whole hell of a lot. It kind of reminds me of 9/11, where the whole country was unified and everyone was, patriotic, and there were, every single car had two fucking flags on the windows, and then sooner or later all those flags just kind of went away and everyone just got back to their usual bullshit, and it just kind of wears off, sooner or later you start seeing those bumper stickers that say these colors don't run, and sure as shit they did run. The fucking sticker is all faded and tattered now, and nobody gives a shit anymore.
Kevin?
How do you follow that? I mean, he dropped.
You don't. All right. Thanks, everyone. Good night.
He dropped 9/11 on me, man. What am I supposed to? How do I follow that up? I think some of the drinking habits will stay, and we saw what are the major changes that we've seen. Right, we've seen the breweries, the people in our industry pushing more package because people are drinking at home, right? Not going out to bars as much. I think that's likely to, if not stay completely, stay near the levels of package sales long term. I think some of that will stick with us. I also think that some of the regression in craft in some of those corporate accounts, larger accounts, is getting a reset because margins are tight, and the loss in revenue that happened over the last year and a half doesn't just get made up, right? We get to a point where they're going to be hurting and having less revenue and building up those coffers more over time. And one of the ways to do that is to sell cheaper products and turn over more of them. So I think we might have a little bit of a reset in some of those corporate places where they used to have craft beer. Now they have crafty beers. And we're going to have to get back in there, and we're going to have to prove our worth in going back in there over time. And anytime the economy suffers and people have less money to spend, an industry like ours gets hit because on average, style to style, our beers cost more money. So I think it'll be a little bit of time to rebound. Eventually, I do think it rebounds. And like you, Joel, I do not think a year from now people are going to be thinking a lot about going out and worried about putting a mask on. Most people, and we are biased, not biased, but we have a weird sample size because we are in Florida, and for the most part, it doesn't look like anyone cared about COVID when it was at its height, and now on its, this is the third go-round that we're really having, the third wave, fourth wave, whatever it is, and still most people that I see at a gas station aren't masked or what have you. So it might be different in California. I know for a fact it is. It's different in New York. But Atlantic Avenue, one of the large areas in South Florida where there's tons of bars and restaurants, they still seem to be freaking packed. We still see a lot of that going on. So I don't know that things have changed all that much in the large scale for us.
Yeah, it is really crazy when you look at us down here in South Florida compared to somewhere else. Like my wife and I were out in California last month, and we had we were fortunate enough to be during the point in time where it seemed like, hey, everything's getting better. And so we were getting to enjoy some stuff kind of mask free. We're vaccinated, and be like, oh, great. We don't have to wear a mask in this bar here where there's only really like a bartender and a couple other people. But there's certain things that I feel like came about from this that were excellent, and I'm almost afraid to see go because I feel like they were really good to consumer anyway. And a lot of that is like online ordering and curbside pickup type of things. When we were in San Francisco, the like pocket seating out on the they've been taking away street parking in front of certain places and building up like just mini buildings with seating in them so that people can be outside. I think stuff like that is awesome. To-go drinks, like in a lot of places that offer to-go cocktails, to-go beers, they put a lid on top of it, and like, here you go, you were allowed to do that. Like I remember following with Pennsylvania, and they allowed for like beer garden seating. You could create like kind of like your own outside seating, even if you didn't have licensing for it, and you could do to-go drinks. And then when things started getting a little better, they just one day decided, this all stops tomorrow. We're better. No more to-go drinks. No more outdoor seating if you don't have a license for this. And it's like, I feel like that's something that you should just allow businesses to have anyway, because it could be just more beneficial to the economy, your local businesses. And I think that those are things that should just stick around anyway. And maybe like closing off streets to pedestrian traffic, because I know a lot of places did that. They were like, no, they are not closing it off to pedestrian traffic, closing it off and only being pedestrian traffic to it. Like there's places in even West Palm Beach that I'm like, why isn't Clematis just pedestrian only? Like there's no need for cars to be on that street. We're not a busy enough city. We're not a huge city, but there's so many people always walking down that Atlantic Ave and Delray even. Like, you don't need cars on those streets. And like being more pedestrian friendly, let people space out a bit more and not just pack all into sidewalks, even without a pandemic, is just healthier and better for everyone to not be up against, who knows, petri dishes of human beings that live in Delray Beach. It's I think that there's a lot of great things that came out of the pandemic for the service industry that can go forward and remain. And that's kind of where I was going with this whole thing.
But the question is, do you think it will? Because you've already said that many of those new regulations or looking the other way on those regulations have already been rescinded. You could say, I mean, listen, we can talk about city planning all you want. Actually, no, I don't really want to talk a lot about city planning.
City plan.
Yes, I don't really want to do that right now. But we could, theoretically. We also could talk about the things we want to see in the industry. But do you actually think that it will make a real change? Because one of the things that we have to keep in mind, and if you were a decision maker in one of these cities, one of these municipalities, this may not be the only time this happens in our lifetime. It seems like it is a once-in-a-lifetime kind of thing, but 3 months from now, a year from now, 2 years from now, we could be with another virus doing another kind of same thing for us, and it could be worse. A lot of people have said, and a lot of people that know a lot more about infectious disease than I do, which I know nothing, just for the record, have said
all of us know nothing.
Yeah, we got lucky with this one. It only killed 600,000 people so far. It could be 3 million, right? So if this is something that we are going to have to live with, should we be encouraging more spacing on a regular basis, all that stuff? Should we? Well, that's a good question, but do you think we will? Because I don't think so. I think that they're going to go back to the standard operating procedure, and we're not going to really learn a lot from this.
For a lot of the big money-making things, probably we'll just go back, like concerts. I mean, we have concerts. Alanis Morissette just played 10 minutes down the street from me last night.
Isn't that ironic?
Beat you.
Don't you think? But it's, yeah, that stuff makes millions of dollars a year, and that stuff's not going to go away. But we could try and have cities look on a micro basis and look at what they can control, and like city planning and streets, and allowing businesses or restaurants that just have outdoor seating without additional licensing being required for those things. They're simple little things that could go a long way, and if they don't want to look selfishly at it, it could be beneficial and helpful.
Wait, Mike, are you using this opportunity to announce your candidacy for the mayor of West Palm Beach? Is that what's happening right now?
I lost my application. It's somewhere around here. We've been moving a lot of stuff around with like babies coming and all of that, but I can't find it.
I just want to say that of your two co-hosts, at least one of us would vote for you automatically. At least one of us.
Even though neither of you live in this city.
Right. That's a technicality. But I don't want you to guess who it is. I don't want to play favorites or anything like that. But
Are
I just
you
want to let
saying
you know,
you would commit voter fraud?
At least one of us, Mike. At least one.
I'm actually running against him. But to kind of play off a little bit of what Mike was saying, I think that this sort of situation will at least factor into plans when new businesses are starting up. I think some consideration will be given to, hey, should we have an outdoor patio? Should we set this place up in a way that if we suddenly need to distance or whatever, you know, are we ready to do that? Can we do it on the fly? But I also think that comes at quite an expense that I don't know everyone wants to incur. So, you know, I think plans will be made for the. I mean, it's just like, you know, businesses will put in, you know, disabled ramps and things like that because they're required, and they do have a great expense. But I'm sure that if they weren't required, they wouldn't do it. So it'd be interesting to see if anything kind of pops up like that in certain areas where maybe there are some requirements. I mean, just before we started recording here, I don't remember where it was, but I saw someone on Twitter posting about some hospitals in some location are now going to start, you know, checking like vaccine status before determining whether or not you get into an ICU bed. So the prioritizing of, you know, these sorts of things will come into play, but, you know, will a business actually want to, have a shitload of plexiglass on standby or all that kind of stuff? Like, I don't know. I think, especially if you're a small local business, opening on such a minimal budget, I got to imagine, especially at the height of the fucking pandemic when everyone was freaking out and everything was selling out and people were panic buying, it was hard to come across sanitizers and masks and all these things. Businesses, gloves were impossible to find. So, like I said, I think some of these things are going to come into consideration, when planning a business or operating one. But I still think, a lot of people are going to go, what are the odds? It's every 100 years.
Or they're going to be like, you know what? I'm going to be old. I'm going to be dead. I don't fucking care. And just, it's up for the next generation.
Yeah, it's like the environment.
Yeah.
It's regression to the mean, right? We're going to go back to where we are comfortable. And and just to bring it back to craft beer, if you are a craft brewery, I think the smart money is to look at where you can pivot if something like this happens again. Because there's no guarantee in PPP loans. There's no guarantee in EIDL loans. There's no guarantee that's going to happen again. And these are things that help to keep a lot of breweries afloat. So I think the big thing for us as a owner of a brewery is to look at what happens the next time this comes in place, hoping it doesn't, right? Hoping this never happens again in our lifetime and this was a blip in the radar. But we have to think about these things. And I think if you are in a decision-making capacity, it's a really, really good idea to be prepared.
Now, it might be a little morbid to think of like great things that have come out of a global pandemic. But if there was anything that you think the beverage industry created or pivoted to that really was amazing out of this pandemic, what would you say it is, Kevin?
I don't really know that there is something that's great that was created out of this. I mean, if this, some of the stuff you talked about with the state looking the other way or the city or the municipality looking the other way for taking to-go drinks and that, if that turns into something we can do on a more regular basis that gives us another source of income, that would be a great thing. But I think it's very unlikely, and I think most of that has already been taken away in general. So I don't really think there is. I think.
What about maybe I should have given an example, like shift more towards package over and allowing to have more options for package to a consumer.
But that's a terrible thing for a lot of breweries in the smaller size because packaged product we make less of a margin on it. A lot of people, it's a loss leader in general, and their money is made in their tap room for draft sales and keg sales. Now, for the bigger breweries, that's perfectly fine. Their economies of scale are better, and they're looking for package sales for most of their growth anyway because they've capped out a lot of the growth that they have with keg beer and in their tap room. So I can only speak from experience from my side, not necessarily talking about a very big craft brewery or one of the macro breweries, but yeah, if we sell the same amount of beer or if we have 100% increase in package sales over a period of time and we have a 25% decrease in draft sales, we lose. We make less money. It's more work for our people, and it's tough for a brewery of our size. And it would be different depending on the brewery you're talking to. But yeah, I don't see a lot of positives that have come out of this. I think that if there is one thing that I could try to reach for a positive, it is the idea of being nimble, the idea of not being stagnant in your thought process and just assuming things are going to happen as they have in the past and there's going to be a natural growth, and saying, well, we've got to be able to pivot when we need to. We have to be looking at every option available to us because nothing's given. Nothing's given to any of us, and we've got to be able to support our people, pay our people, keep them healthy, and make the right decisions if this ever happens again.
And I already thought before this whole thing that a large percentage of breweries should not be packaging anyway. It's a quality control thing, and I think just because you can put beer in a can doesn't mean you should. And yes, like Kevin said, it's great to be nimble and pivot if you need, and do whatever you can to survive. But at the same time, not everyone is making, packageable beer. And to give an example, and I won't say who, but during the whole thing, I went to a local brewery that had somehow found a little canner that they put on their bar top, and they were filling like little 12-ounce cans to go out the door, like individual cans. And as I'm sitting there having a beer, I'm just watching these cans leak from the seams. So, there's no regulations when it comes to any of that. All you can do is hope. I mean, look at how many beers don't have fucking date codes and are sitting on dry shelves just ready to burst. So I don't like the idea of everyone suddenly switching to package because, that's what they need to do. I mean, that doesn't do anything for your beer. I wish there were more standards in place and just kind of standards overall. I think a lot of people think this fucking whole beer thing is really easy, and I don't think it is at all. And I feel stronger about that the longer I'm in this, which is ironic because you would think it would be the opposite. But, it wasn't like, if you're looking for positives, Mike, I did enjoy, how it kind of brought people in our industry a little closer together for a little bit. I mean, even though we couldn't physically be together at times.
I was just going to say.
Right.
6 feet apart, but...
Right. Even further, please, get the fuck away from me. But it was nice having those Zoom calls with a whole bunch of people and everyone getting to know each other. And for a minute there, people really felt vulnerable and were looking for more human connection. And now it's like the complete opposite. I feel like we've gone in the complete opposite direction and everyone's just antagonizing each other. But, there was a nice minute there where it seemed like some of those innovations the industry needed as far as like online ordering and delivery and cocktails to go and all those things that weren't available to us before, suddenly you could snap your finger and do it and it was okay. And, it kind of showed like all those barriers that we have up are so easily breakable. I think a lot of facades came down.
Yeah, I see what you mean there. And those type of things that you said right there at the end are what I looked at as quasi bright spots, as like being able to do these, and they weren't like like Kevin was saying, the government turning a blind eye to. They were issuing like emergency mandates and like, hey, you can do this, but it was like not a law to where it was permanent. It was one of those things that, like I said, in Pennsylvania, they were able to just be like, all right, this is over now. You all need to stop. And like, oh, well, hey, this is kind of working out for a lot of people, a lot of businesses, a lot of individuals who just want to like pop into a bar as they're walking by and grab a drink to go and not hang out in the bar because they are being conscious of their personal health and everyone's health. And like, just to be like, all right, done, over. It's like, maybe we should have a discussion about this, and maybe we should have this fast laned into a bill that then becomes law. But you all brought up great points about the positives and the negatives. Like obviously there's a lot of negatives that came out of this. But it's with all of this said and all of this that we've just discussed, do you think that we are more likely to just fall back into the old norm? Do we change things, or do we get some sort of hybrid that includes the old norms with some changes that we have experienced during all of this. Joel?
I mean, if you put it like that, I mean, in a way, I'm hopeful that we just kind of go back to normal, because, like, look, I don't think that masks are tyranny. And, you know, when I was at the doctor last week, I had some schmuck next to me in the waiting room talking about, like, my, you know, with the vaccine, like, my body, my choice. Like, you just wanted to punch this fucker.
In the pocket with big mask over there. Big mask. Joel's a shill.
But I do think that, you know, once you start allowing certain freedoms to be given up, that you never get them back. And I don't want to get into too much detail on that, but I'm just kind of, I just feel like I hope we get past this shit, and, you know, there's no more fucking variants, that eventually enough people are vaccinated and smart about the decisions they make, that, you know, we can get past it all, and this doesn't just keep coming back constantly. But I don't know, man. I'm you know, like I said before, I just think we're going to kind of fall back into our old ways. Truly, I don't like feeling like that. It's, yeah, I say a lot of silly shit on here, and a lot, you know, most of it's like a bit that I do, and kind of a character I play into. But, you know, there are some things like that I feel that I wish I didn't.
Kevin?
I think there might be some subtle change in spending habits, and there will be a few more people, a statistical, an important percentage of people will do a little bit less going out, possibly when they're feeling sick or during flu season or what have you. But I think overall, we're just going to go back to normal. I think everyone is aching to go back to normal. And if you see with this most recent outbreak, especially in Florida, you don't have, even the people who care don't really care anymore. And there's just so much more malaise about it. So I think people are aching to get back to normal, and I think it will.
Okay. All right. So let's move on. Well, by we, I mean me. I threw this out there on our Twitter account right before we went to recording on putting Joel on the spot. Like,
I'm just checking something real quick, Mike. Does we always mean you?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to. I just want to make
it's
sure.
It's the royal we,
Okay.
and I am royalty.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure that everyone understands that.
I threw out, who wants to hear a Joel hot take? Send us what you want to hear him go off about. And I also was like, preferably not something that you've already heard him go on about. And I was expecting beer related things. Not a single thing on here is beer related. So
that's convenient. Not a single thing on our podcast is beer related. So that makes sense.
That's true. So let's try to go through this somewhat quickly, but also let's see what Joel has to say. Joel, greatest Stallone movie ever?
Rocky IV.
Rocky IV.
Yeah. Honestly, I was gonna say First Blood because you know, just being an early '80s action movie with also some very heavy, you know, post-Vietnam undertones and a very strong message about how this country treats its troops. Rocky IV, man. I mean, that is 1985 Reagan America. You know, us versus the Soviets, Cold War. Just fucking montage music. I mean, if you don't have the Rocky IV soundtrack on your workout playlist, you're a piece of shit.
I've actually been going through rewatching the Rocky movies, and I just finished 3, so I'm about to go on to 4, and 3 was not great. So
I don't like any of them but 4.
One was good.
4 is the only one to me. And I do like Creed and Creed 2, but I don't consider them Rocky movies.
Okay.
I have a no.
I'm personally surprised you did not pick Stop or My Mom Will Shoot.
You know, I was trying to think of that name and say it as a joke, but what kept coming up in my mind was Throw Mama from the Train. And I know Danny DeVito does not have any workout montages in that movie.
He does not, nor does Billy Crystal.
Unfortunately. Yeah, they should. They really should.
By the way, that question came from our friend Andrew at Maynard Brewer on Twitter. Next question is from our friend at Chicago Alley. What's the best place in Chicago? Seems very vague, but go ahead.
Anywhere where you don't get shot.
Jesus.
Hot take?
Not many.
That is a hot take.
Pretty much all of the city is amazing.
Next up, we have from at Merc7186. If he were in Die Hard, but in real life, what kind of sweater would he wear to the Christmas party?
I wouldn't, because it's California.
That's a really good answer.
It really is.
It's a really good answer.
I'm pretty sure John McClane has a jacket in the beginning, but he's flying in from New York during Christmas.
Attention to detail from those set designers. Good job. And lastly, we have from a friend of the show, Mike at Frey All Day. If he could watch one movie for the rest of his life, why is it Con Air?
Because Dave Chappelle getting stuck in the landing gear of a moving airplane and then falling out and landing on... I mean, I don't wish, these things on Dave Chappelle. I'm just saying, knowing the comedy... What?
Wait, you don't wish this on Dave Chappelle?
No, I love Dave Chappelle.
Okay, I just want to make sure everyone knows you do not wish Dave Chappelle dies in landing gear.
Yes, I do not want him stuck in the landing gear of a plane.
Dave
transporting prisoners.
Is an avid listener of the podcast. I just want to mention Dave Chappelle. Joel loves you and does not want you to die being stuck in landing gear. I'm sorry, Joel. Go ahead.
So it's a combination of that, knowing the legend he is now, as opposed to a, just known stand-up comedian and sometimes comedic actor. He's an A-lister for sure now. So going back and seeing him in that is hilarious. Plus, the whole put down the bunny scene. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but
yes,
Nicolas Cage feels very strong about a particular stuffed animal in the cargo hold of this plane.
I believe it's actually put the bunny down.
Oh, is that what it is?
I think so.
It should be, grammatically, it should be put down the bunny.
Yeah, of course it should be, but Nicolas Cage doesn't
Fridays,
use
we have our Nicolas Cage podcast. It's
the Cage Cast?
The Cage Cast.
Yeah, the Cage Cast.
It's riveting stuff. I think we're going to talk about Raising Arizona just for a little bit on the next one. Let's be honest, we talk about Raising Arizona on every episode of the Cage Cast.
We should. We absolutely should.
All right. So that's all for quick hot takes from Joel. If you want some more, just tweet at us at United We Drink, and I'll queue them up. Don't include him on them, so maybe we can get a little more not advance notice to him so that he can prepare for them. I think it's time now for last calls, the time in the show where everyone gets an unspecified amount of time to be able to voice their opinion about whatever they'd like, unopposed, unobjected, uninterrupted. And for this, let's start with Kevin.
Oh, wow. Thank you. One of the first things I want to say is I'm so glad I grabbed a third beer because I'm almost through it, and that was a good call by me. My real last call is I hate naming beers. It is the bane of my existence. It's one of the things that you would think would be the most fun, when you own a brewery, when you're a brewer, when you're working intimately, when you're a decision maker at a brewery, you think, oh, I get to come up with these fun names and I get to make esoteric comments on the things out in the ether and come up with all these beer names. It sucks. It really, really sucks because, newsflash everyone, every name's been taken. Every name has been taken. Every idea you've had, someone else has had before. And I hate doing it. Every new beer we have is painful. We've spent the last week or so trying to come up with a new name for an IPA. And there's some good names that have been thrown out by the team. But every single time we're like, man, that's a really good idea. 14 beers. 14 beers are named that. And that's just on entries on Untapped. There's probably more. So naming beer sucks. I don't want to ever do it again. I think we should all go back to the very simple naming conventions. We can just call them just regular names like Steve or Dave or Mike. I think Hair of the Dog used to do that.
I was just going to say, are you Hair of the Dog?
Or we can just be Barrel Amongst IPA, Barrel Amongst Lighter IPA, Barrel Amongst Double IPA. I just want to go back to that and not have to try to be creative because it's not my strength. Guys, it's just not my strength. And I don't like it. That's it.
All right. I'm going to jump in here. I want to say that I hate the fucking concept of contractor, subcontractor in the world that we are in. I'm sure that there are plenty of good contractors out there, plenty of good subcontractors out there, but it's a fucking stupid concept that is built around, I feel like, laziness. Because you don't want to go and find the person who does this and the person who does that, so you hire a contractor. I'm just dealing with a shitty contractor right now. A really shitty contractor who should probably retire, close his business, never be a thing again. And maybe on a future episode, I will voice who that contractor is. But I'm not going to do that right now. I fucking hate this because you would think that the contractor, the person who you're paying money, good money, to do stuff, who then pays money to other people to do the stuff, would have an idea as to what's going on with your job. And then you say things to the sub, you say things to the contractor, and like, well, I got to go talk to this person. Like, well, why can't we all talk together? Well, it'd probably be better if I just talk to them. Like, the communication chain is broken down. It's worse than the 3-tier chain of our fucking beverage industry. I fucking hate it. I never want to do anything work-wise to my house again that involves contractor, sub. I'm sorry to the people who are contractors, subs, who are good at their jobs, know people, are related to people who are good at their jobs of doing that. I'm having a bad experience with this. Get this. And I am voicing my frustration with this situation that I am in. And I am very angry. I'm glad that it's almost over. But just fuck that whole breakdown of contractor, subs, and all of that shit. So fuck that shit. I hate work being done on my house right now. Joel.
Well, unlike Kevin, I'm very glad I only had one beer because I love naming beers. It is one of my favorite parts of the creative process. I think it's fun and makes the beer fun. I think it often gets overthought and people go, oh, there's only so many words in the dictionary. And that's not entirely true because they're adding new words to the dictionary every year and your ability to combine them is limitless. I mean, I don't know what it's like, those numeric fucking, never mind. But, just like I love naming beers, I love the whole contractor subcontractor thing. I hire a smart contractor and then he picks the right people for the individual jobs rather than having to, do everything himself when his strong suit may not be electricity or plumbing or anything like that. So, fuck you guys.
Mike, is he allowed to do that? Is he allowed to take our last calls?
I found a loophole in the no responding to last calls.
I don't feel like this should be allowed.
I mean, it shouldn't count because I didn't want to do a real last call anyway because I had my little rant.
Kevin threw a red flag on that, so I'm going to go under the hood and I'm going to check it out, and I will be back next week to say whether or not that was legal. And if not, I will hand down a penalty to Joel. Or if Joel is fine, then I'm going to take a timeout away from Kevin. Little did you guys know that we had timeouts in this podcast.
I did not know
one's
that,
ever
but
used one.
I did not know that, but I do want to mention that I don't think our listeners know this, but we have a large listener base of contractors and subcontractors. Large. It's 50 to 57% of our listenership is people from that profession. And the fact that you have the balls, Mike, to speak your mind and maybe piss those people off and maybe lose our listener base and all of our sponsorships go away. I'm really proud of you, man. I'm just glad that you spoke your mind. And,
I'm sorry, West Virginia.
Yeah, let the cards fall where they may. Chips, cards, whatever. I don't care about analogies.
Chips? Or you mean crisps? Those types of chips?
Sure.
Okay. All right. Kevin, do you have anything to plug?
Everyone listening to this should drink beer from Barrel of Monks Brewing in Boca Raton, Florida.
All right, Joel.
Come out to Barrel of Monks Brewing if you're a preferred subcontractor or contractor and enjoy some beers like Barrel of Monks IPA. Let's see. This will drop with a single in the sun. Wonderful Belgian-style blonde ale. Easy 4.5% light, crystal clear, crushable, word I hate, but a beer I love. And try the version with guava, our single in Havana. And I know this episode drops on the 26th. We're having a throwdown, a kind of beer and food pairing competition on the 29th. I don't know if tickets will still be available by then. They always sell out, but do try to get in on that. And you can find me at Joel Brews, usually saying some real stupid shit on Twitter. And Florida DUH Brewer on Instagram, although I'm mostly in the stories now and not uploading too many photos.
No pictures of eggs anymore.
I have considered just sending pictures of eggs to you guys, now that you know my little quirk about egg symmetry and, properly organizing eggs in the carton for equal weight distribution and balance.
I almost feel like I just want to send you pictures of my egg cartons just going, like, go from one end to the other.
Please don't, because, even though I did that with your last calls, if you do that to me with a photo of unbalanced eggs, it will be like a fucking splinter in my mind until I see another carton of eggs that's equally balanced.
My favorite thing about this bit is no one else knows what we're talking about. That's the best part of this.
Joel's talked about the egg thing on the show many times.
Oh, that's true.
Egg symmetry on Instagram.
Hashtag?
You can follow me. You can follow me on Twitter at Mike Loves Beer. I'm also on Instagram at that as well. Just to plug Copper Point Brewing. We got some fun stuff coming up. We have our coffee lager coming out soon with a brand new design label that I did that I am really proud of. We also just brewed. You're not going to see this over on our own social media because I'm being a tease, but we just brewed a fucking Doppelbock and we're going to put that into cans, and it's fucking Going to be amazing. And I really love the label design for it. It's probably my favorite label that I've designed. And I can't wait to share that with everyone out there. And you can follow the show on all of our social media. We're at United We Drink on Twitter, at United We Drink Pod on Instagram. We're on Facebook as well, but who gives a fuck about that? And you can listen to us on all of the major podcasting services, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts. Oh, you can also listen to podcasts now on Facebook. I just found out about last week, but fuck them. And I don't know why. I just have a weird aggression against them, but I'm fine with Instagram, even though they're owned by the same company. But whatever. We will be back here check out our sponsors on our website, unitedwedrink.com/sponsors, like Liquid Death. And you can buy a shirt, button, sticker, or whatever from our web store, unitedwedrink.com/store. If you want to support the show financially, all of those things would be fucking lovely. We'll see you back here in 2 weeks, and we always appreciate your listening. Thank you. Stay safe, mask up, wash your hands, get fucking vaccinated. Cheers.
Cheers.
Kevin has nothing to say.